Photo by Glenn James, NBAE via Getty ImagesThe 2019 NBA trade deadline isn't for another week, but the madness has already begun. Many knew that injured New York Knicks star Kristaps Porzingis had an uneasy relationship with the organization, but things escalated past the point of no return on Thursday. Just minutes after ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported that Porzingis had met with Knicks officials to discuss the team's direction, the story evolved into the front office being left with the impression he wanted to be traded. Just hours later, the New York Times' Mark Stein reported they had agreed to a trade with the Dallas Mavericks. Per Stein, the Knicks will be unloading the contracts of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee on Dallas, while the Mavs will send Dennis Smith Jr., DeAndre Jordan and Wesley Matthews to the Big Apple. 2 future first-round draft picks are reportedly going to New York, and The Athletic's Shams Charania also reports Trey Burke will head to Dallas in the exchange. On the surface, this seems like an alarmingly low return for a 23-year-old star in the making like Porzingis, who averaged 22.7 points, 6.6 rebounds and 2.4 blocks per game last year en route to an All-Star selection in just his third NBA season. However, there's more to this deal than meets the eye. Did the Knicks react too quickly and sell too low on their once-beloved unicorn? Is there any way such a move could come back to bite the Mavs, or is this the home run deal it appears? To sort it all out, here's a look at NBA trade grades for both sides. Page 2 Photo by Jim McIsaac, Getty Images. The most obvious takeaway from this deal from the Mavs' point of view is this team is committed to putting a winning product around its franchise cornerstone, Luka Doncic. If the Zinger can return healthy from last year's ACL tear and build on what would have been an all-star campaign, this dynamic duo is one worth salivating over. What a move by Dallas though. They have whiffed in free agency for years and struggled in the draft. Now have Luka and KP to build around for the next decade. Chris Mannix, at Chris Mannix, January 31, 2019. Porzingis may have only shot 43.9% from the field last year, but he canned a career-high 39.5% of his triples, taking 4.8 of them per game. He's a legitimate stretch 5 and one of the league's best shot blockers, making him a terrific cornerstone alongside Doncic if they can keep them together for the foreseeable future. Doncic is the runaway favorite for Rookie of the Year and even has a case for an all-star spot in the loaded Western Conference as the best player on a Mavs team that's still within striking distance of the postseason. Averaging 20.4 points, 6.9 rebounds and 5.4 assists per game, Wonder Boy is doing things the league has never seen from a 19-year-old before. His instant translation to the NBA game has accelerated Dallas' timeline, which is why it was important to start putting the right building blocks around him now. Like Doncic, Porzingis is an established NBA star who's also young enough to help ground the franchise's title aspirations for the next 10 years, if he so chooses, that is. Sources: All-Star Kristaps Porzingis is planning to inform the Dallas Mavericks his intent is to sign the qualifying offer in restricted free agency this summer. Shams Charania, at Shams Charania, January 31, 2019. The Unicorn is heading for restricted free agency this summer, but according to Charania, he intends to sign a 1-year qualifying offer that will allow him to become an unrestricted free agent in 2020. Such a move would only guarantee he stays in Dallas for 1 full season, at which point in time other suitors could enter the bidding war in 2020 free agency. Wojnarowski offered a conflicting report that Porzingis will consider his options and familiarize himself with the Mavs organization before making a decision about the qualifying offer, which would give Dallas the chance to lock him down for the foreseeable future if he were willing to agree to a longer deal. This would seem to be the most prudent path, especially for a 7-footer coming off a serious knee injury, but only time will tell what kind of advice he's getting from his camp about giving Dallas a chance or already browsing next year's market for a new NBA home. Porzingis is incredibly fond of Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic, and the Mavericks have confidence they will be able to keep Porzingis, league sources said. Knicks, Mavericks talk started picking up steam Wednesday night. https://t.co/dvsnl7 Vikes U, Shamsharania, at Shamsharania, January 31, 2019 Tim Hardaway Jr. is on a bloated contract that will pay him $18.2 million next season with a $19 million player option for 2020-21, but a large part of his struggles in New York were due to how much he was asked to do. He's not a go-to-scorer on offense, so hopefully playing alongside Doncic and Porzingis in a lesser role will allow him to recapture some of the efficiency he showed during his time with the Atlanta Hawks. Courtney Lee will be owed $12.8 million next season, but can still serve as a 3-and-D guy off the bench. He hasn't played much in New York this season, but if he's washed up at 33 years old, the Mavs should still be able to move him as an expiring contract sometime within the next year. Porzingis won't be able to help with the Mavs' last-ditch playoff efforts this year, but whatever happens this season, Dirk Nowitzki's importance may have just shot through the roof. Once compared to the great German big man, Porzingis would have a full year to learn under Dirk if Nowitzki commits to running it back for one last season in 2019-20. That kind of veteran presence cannot be understated. Dallas got 20 years out of Dirk, could get 10 to 15 more out of Porzingis, billed as Dirk 2.0. Bet Dallas wouldn't mind Dirk hanging around another year to work with him. Chris Mannix, at @ChrisMannix, January 31, 2019 As for what the Mavs gave up to get the zinger, Matthews and Jordan were both expiring contracts who had no future in Dallas. Matthews is 32 and hasn't been the same since his Achilles injury in 2015, while Jordan has been a shell of his former self this season. Approaching his 31st birthday, he was likely to be gone this summer as well. Dennis Smith Jr. is the only real player of value on the way out, but his numbers had taken a hit in year 2, falling to 12.9 points, 4.3 assists and 3.0 rebounds per game in an increasingly off-ball role. Though he was hitting an improved 34.4% of his threes, he wasn't a good fit beside Doncic and had grown as disgruntled with his role as head coach Rick Carlisle had grown with his decision-making. Even if Porzingis turns out to be a one-year rental, the package Dallas gave up, 2 expirings on the way out and an point guard who was a poor fit, was worth that risk. Giving up 2 future first-round picks after shelling one out last year to snag Doncic will subtract yet more team-controlled assets down the road, but that's easier to swallow since they've been used to land Doncic and now KP as foundations to build upon. The soonest the first pick can go to New York is 2021, assuming Dallas' top 5 protected pick conveys to the Atlanta Hawks this summer. It's a definite gamble to send out 2 picks for an injured 7-footer, depending on what the protections are, but it could ultimately be a worthwhile one. Grade, a page 3 photo by Nathaniel S. Butler, NBAE via Getty ImagesThe. On the surface, this seems like a major blunder for the Knicks. In a vacuum, this is an alarmingly low return for a player of Porzingis' caliber, even with the injury concerns thrown in. No one knows how this 7-footer will return from injury after missing the final 34 games of the 2017-18 campaign and every game this season, and although the Knicks would have a better idea than anyone else, this is still a major gamble. Matthews and Jordan are useful veterans, but they could very quickly become buyout candidates. Even if they last the whole season, more than likely, they won't be re-signing in the Big Apple over the summer. No, this move was all about the cap space being created, which could reach $74.6 million for next season. The Knicks are on way toward creating 2 max salary slots for next summer. When today started, they didn't even have space for one. They are preparing to swing big. Brian Windhorst, at WindhorstESPN, January 31, 2019 Having 2 max salary spots this summer would make New York contenders for every big-name free agent looking for a change of scenery, especially as it pertains to star players looking to team up with their fellow stars and form a super team. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker and Klay Thompson are just some of the names that have been bandied about over the last few months, and if the KD to NY whispers are true, having yet another max slot would make this free agency destination seem even more enticing. However, there's also inherent risk in selling solo on a player like Kristaps Porzingis just to clear out cap space. Not only are the Knicks taking a gamble that all their cap room will actually lead to signing KD, Kyrie or Kemba, but they also just dealt away their best building block meant to attract those star free agents. No offense to Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox or Frank Ntilikina, but they're not enticing anyone to sign in New York. Feeler would be playing in a great city, a big market, for a prestigious franchise, in name and arena only, with the cap space to still add another star. That plan is not foolproof, and could fall through if KD, Kemba and Kyrie all stay put. You know what they say, always trade away your generational star because you might have a chance to land 2 max contract stars in free agency, or maybe only 1, or you might strike out entirely because lol Knicks, https://t.co/z3vxx71x, Adam Fromel, at Fromel09, January 31, 2019. There's always the Anthony Davis angle to consider, as the Knicks have been expected to put together offers for the New Orleans Pelicans superstar. However, one of the best assets they could have brought to the table in such a trade is now a Maverick. The Knicks' biggest blue-chip asset, their own 2019 first-round draft pick, comes with a certain amount of risk as well. Even if the Knicks wind up tying for the best odds of winning the number 1 overall pick, they'll still only have a 14% chance. If they go on to win the right to draft Zion Williamson at No. 1, that's definitely something New Orleans might be interested in. However, it'd also mean giving up on the potential of having a player like Zion under team control for basically the next decade. Rookies rarely offer the same kind of immediate competitive upside that someone like Anthony Davis would provide, so although drafting Zion would be a wise long-term move, keeping him would also jeopardize their free agency pitch compared to having someone like the Brow on board already. The Knicks could have double max space and the number 1 pick this summer. They could have 2 stars in Zion. Or, they could have nothing. This is a big risk. Chris Mannix, at Chris Mannix, January 31, 2019. In a best-case scenario, the Knicks wind up drafting Zion Williamson, trading for Anthony Davis, signing Kevin Durant, signing Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker and building around that star-studded group. In a worst-case scenario, they have no shot at AD, miss out on the No. 1 pick, fail to make a splash in free agency as the superstars stay put and just traded away their star to undergo another rebuild with DSJ, Ntilikina and Knox as the centerpieces. Gulp. It's hard to fully judge this deal until after the 2019 NBA draft lottery, free agency and yes, once we've seen how Kristaps Porzingis looks next season. This whole situation escalated quickly, but if the trust wasn't there, a trade would have been the ultimate outcome anyway. The 2 first-round pick saves this deal for the Knicks, but if they whiff in free agency this summer, all they accomplish, aside from adding a flawed point guard they should have drafted in 2017 anyway, is prolonging a rebuild that will hope to draft star players like the one they just shipped off to Dallas. Next, 10 potential Anthony Davis trades. Grade C.